Well, I'm awfully glad to be here with you. This seminar today on the global water crisis is, among other things, a birthday celebration for me and Mr. Tagore, put on by my friend and longtime associate, Dr. Rice Bihari Ghosh, and his volunteers. On behalf of Mr. Tagore and IBHB, Public Health, and the University of California, Berkeley, I would like to dedicate this year's seminar to two great Bengalis I admire very deeply: the great spiritual leader Swami Vivekananda, who brought the Vedanta to America, which was a spiritual enlightenment, and Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father of Bangladesh, who gave his life for secular democracy. After discussion of the ecological crises we now face, I will speak about the vision of these men and how it can contribute to our search for solutions. We're here today at the 4th Annual Towns and Tagore Seminar to address a problem that affects all of us. Our plan was beset by an ecological crisis unprecedented in human history. A composite of interrelated crises we address individually in terms of climate change, the water crisis, deforestation, desertification, the collapse of biological diversity, the degradation through pollution of the air, water, and soil that constitute our biosphere, and the list goes on. But nature is a unity, and it is pointless to consider these problems in isolation. However, different people think about unity in different ways. In the West, unity serves as the ideal of scientific thought, and modern science is our quest for newer and more powerful expressions of nature as a unified system of laws which explain the coherence and interconnectedness of the world we appreciate. However, our science increasingly tells us that our ecological crises are the consequences of our species and a way of life that developed in the West more than 2 centuries ago. Nevertheless, despite all we have learned about nature, despite all that we've learned about nature, and more particularly our biosphere as an interconnected whole, and our own implication in the crisis, we make very few attempts to embrace, respect, and preserve the unity and integrity of our environment in our ethics and policy. We fail to live in harmony with nature, and we have gone astray. If we are to find solutions to our environmental crisis, we must think first about human nature. Specifically, we must find ways to effect its reconciliation with the natural unity that nurtured its evolution these billions of years. For this, I would like to turn to a work by Tagore entitled, quote, "The Relation of the Individual to the Universe," unquote. Tagore states that we separate ourselves from nature at our own risk. To quote Tagore, quote, "India knew that when we violently detach ourselves from the inexhaustible life of nature and become nearly man, not man in the universe, we create bewildering problems," unquote. Tagore goes on to state that attempts to solve the problems we so create, quote, "shut off the source of their solution," unquote. They're artificial, and such attempts bring, quote, "their own indeterminable difficulties." So where do we begin? Many stories begin with water. The book of Genesis begins with the breath of God on the water with the deep. In the term of Purana, between the ages of creation, Vishnu himself, the possibility of all future life, says to sleep upon this same water. Likewise, in the creation story of current evolutionary theory, the possibility of human life emerges 2.4 billion years ago when primitive aquatic organisms on the surface of an ancient ocean evolved chlorophyll and began to use the light of the sun to reduce the carbon dioxide atmosphere and liberate free oxygen. At that time, our Earth began to breathe for us, and set the course for evolutionary lineage that would bring forth Homo sapiens. As life proliferated, and much of the organic carbon that formed in the process was buried by geological processes and sequestered in the Earth as the coal, oil, and natural gas that is currently extracting to drive our economies. It is now accepted that the return of the fossilized carbon to the atmosphere is a chief contributor to climate change. We might say that over the span of 2 centuries, our species has adversely affected the geological and biological mechanisms that have sustained our evolution for more than 2 billion years, to the point that the survival of our species is now perhaps open to question. To use Tagore's language, we have, quote, violently detached, unquote, ourselves from the natural processes that fostered our development as a species. We are now facing the consequences. However, even as we become aware of the consequences of fossilized carbon consumption, we are as a whole insufficiently committed to the changes in energy policies that will permit the mitigation and reversal of these problems. Now that we understand the origin of the water crisis, in as much as we are not united and committed to develop a solution, this crisis has become additionally a crisis of vision, or more accurately, an inability to turn vision into meaningful commitment and action. Now let's talk about science and the water crisis. As the water crisis emerges, clean water resources will become more important than hydrocarbon resources. Our advances in technology and understanding of nature are not always accompanied by the wisest users of technology. One of the causes of the water crisis is global warming, driven chiefly by the release of greenhouse gases over the past 200 years and compounded by continued deforestation. The hotter the world becomes and the less we conserve, the less water is available, especially in the deep aquifers that would be immune to these climatic variations. However, these resources too are being depleted. To release hydrocarbons through fracking, we are destroying a resource that is immeasurably more important for the survival of our species and an ecosystem that has provided our species the very possibilities of its evolution and a good and natural life. Proper use of technology is to improve human life with respect for the nature that makes it possible. It is very unlikely that our politicians or policymakers would destroy hydrocarbon resources to facilitate access to potable water, although the latter is immeasurably more important for our survival. However, the fact that the reversion of this scenario is so commonplace says as much about our misplaced priorities. Unwise use of emerging technologies or industrial practices including fracking, is not a use of technology in accordance with Tagore's vision or my own. It is not the best use of science or even a decent one to pursue profit at the expense of others' wealth and happiness. Abuse and overuse of water has resulted in depletion of groundwater, and also aquifers are damaged by toxic contamination from our thoughtless use of groundwater. The Himalayan mountains are one of the major sources of fresh water in the world. Ice caps melting on the Himalayan mountains due to global warming pose a serious threat to access to clean water. The water that comes from the highest parts of India and the foothills of the Himalayas and drains into the Indian Ocean mostly flows into the Bengal region. China's dam built on the Tibetan Plateau will have an adverse effect on the water resources of the Bengal Basin. These reservoirs have caused much water that would otherwise go to the Bengal Basin to be lost by evaporation. There's also the possibility that much of the impounded water could be diverted in the channel to dry areas of China. This huge riverland will also block silt from reaching the annual flooded farmlands of the Bengal Basin, depriving them of fertility. If India and China continue to emulate the West's historic pattern of high energy development, Bangladesh at least has the option of trying a somewhat different route, which may have advantages in an era of continually declining energy. If 80% of Bangladeshis were living on the land rather than displaced in the city slums, education and cultural access could be brought to them by modern communication technology, but only if these channels are protected from takeover by profit-seeking interests. Improving the educational status of women has been remarkably effective in lowering birth rates, as has increasing women's economic options. Increasingly, transnational corporations are trying to control the world's drinking water supply and contain extensive man-made raised areas to protect against flooding. According to a UN climate report, The Himalayan glaciers are the source of Asia's biggest rivers, the Ganges, the Indus, Brahmaputra, Yangtze, Mekong, Salween, and Yellow, could disappear by 2350 as temperatures rise, or even as early as 2035. Approximately 3 billion people live in the drainage basins of the Himalayan rivers, which is almost half of the current human population. The Himalayan system, which includes sub-ranges, stretches across Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, People's Republic of China, India, Nepal, Burma, Cambodia, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Pakistan. Some of the world's major rivers rise in the Himalayas, and the combined drainage basin in India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Myanmar could experience floods followed by droughts in the coming decades. In India alone, the Ganges provides water for drinking and farming for more than 500 million people. The west coast of North America, which gets much of the water from the glaciers and the mountain ranges such as the Rocky Mountains, Cascade Mountains, and the Sierra Nevada, also would be affected. According to the California Department of Water Resources, if more water supplies are not found by 2020, California residents will face a water shortfall nearly as great as the amount consumed today. Wow, that's rough. England and France, where water has already been privatized, rates have soared and water shortages have been severe. The major bottled water producers, Perrier, Evian, Nair, and now Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, are part of one of the fastest growing and least regulated industries, buying up freshwater rights and drying up crucial supplies. Corporate giants act in their own interest, as water only flows uphill to the wealthy who can afford it. Great Bengalis in our quest for solutions to the ecological crisis complex. The global crisis requires global solutions, and if solutions are to emerge, they must take into account all the wisdom that is available to us. Our pursuit of vision must reach across the planet to cultures other than those that came up with modern Western science, and we must reach across the humanities and disciplines that count the human condition qualitatively in terms of the human spirit, in terms of history, poetry, philosophy, and religion. First, I strongly urge you to study one of the world's great spiritual leaders, Swami Vivekananda, and his assessment of the West. 9 volumes of his English works are available for free online. This man has brought the adoption to America had a great respect for our democracy, our optimism, and our commitment to solving problems. Yet, he warns us that we should never think that the gains of progress can even serve as a substitute for the real or divine self. Our ability to care for others and respect ourselves is diminished by greed, the pursuit of power, and the rush to get ahead. Solutions that are needed today must involve considerable scientific and technological innovation and ingenuity, but we cannot repair our relation with our environment. Given the progress, we lose sight of our own humanity. 1915 Nobel Laureate in Literature, and there's Romain Rolland, provides an excellent introduction to this great man in his, quote, Life of Vivekananda. I recommend you read it. India is an ancient homeland of the human spirit, and this indicates the humanities. This includes the humanities. If we are to celebrate the greatness of Tagore, we must also celebrate the traditions and the poets that inspire him, including Karl Das, the great 5th century Indian poet and dramatist, Bankim Chandra, outstanding writer, scholar, real pandit, and visionary, 19th century leader of the Indian Renaissance. Kani Nazrul Islam, the Bengali rebel poet, arrested and jailed by the British for sedition in the cause of Indian independence, at Kanji, the leader Subhash. Bose, the great freedom fighter of India, who significantly shaped the cause of Indian independence. Their call to action compelled the British to leave India. Well, I now ask you to read the life history of Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father of Bangladesh, for his commitment to secularism and democracy, his exemplary sacrifice, and his forgiving of his enemies for the sake of peace and unity. Like Thomas Jefferson, Mujib is the father of a modern democracy and a role model for all of us. These are the people whom I admire. And I look to them for inspiration, but I look to people like them for solutions. Good science cannot deliver good policy without the combined efforts of our political, moral, and spiritual leaders, our scholars, our poets, and our artists. Science needs the humanities to save humanity, to address the crises that now confront our species and our planet. Now more than ever, we must work with all people from all walks of life together on cultural, technological, and spiritual exchanges between the West and the East, the North and the South. And in all these regards, we are fortunate to have the legacy of individuals such as Tagore, Vivekananda, and Bangabandhu, who are all friends of Bengal. I also support the ideas and proposals of Dr. Ghosh to invest 1% of the U.S. budget to build an environmentally friendly water infrastructure in regions where it's needed. Alternatively, if it is appropriate, the U.S. can, without changing the budget, reallocate a portion of interest-free loan or aid to be used for water infrastructure. Convert this aid into investment with a low interest. No adequate action plan has been made to address this crisis. It is our collective responsibility to protect this freshwater resource. Let's utilize resource of expertise and engineers, that is, to institute training programs in developing countries with a specific focus on implementing water infrastructure. On science and human values, provision of environmentally friendly infrastructure in parts of the world where it is most needed must be done with no loss of time to protect the remaining groundwater. Then the U.S. will be a role model for the rest of the world. The investment will bestow mutual trust, provided we are careful about how this investment is actualized. Until you build up trust, there will be no resistance and there will be more resistance and tension. Only the building of trust will allow for the building of infrastructure. Let's not waste any more time. The groundwater is crucial for the livelihood of about 1.6 billion rural households in the poor regions of Africa and Asia. I am also deeply concerned when I found out that the water shortage in California is very severe, and I do not understand why we could not overcome the groundwater shortage here when we have resources, technology, and expertise which are all available. I am asking all of you to get involved in protecting the remaining drinking water resource and join IIBHB and help Dr. Ghosh to make awareness of this serious problem both at home and abroad. Finally, I want to invite your attention that due to my advanced age, I plan to put some information together, including my letters and supporting papers to various authorities, to demonstrate what a great injustice was done to Dr. Ghosh and to his institute by the city of Berkeley. As the city took two of his houses located in central Berkeley by using concocted code and also kept more than $200,000 deposit for repairs. These documents will be available soon. Please join me to fight for Dr. Ghosh to save the facility of our institute and protect the integrity of our great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Towns. Before you go, sir, we would like to give you a flower, and we also prepared one for Mrs. Towns.
Oh.